Hello, good morning for the fourth time this week. We're back, Footy Rants, with everything round 19 NRL. So still just a little bit of a shortened round this week coming out of the back of Origin. So yeah, 6 games evenly split across the next 3 days. So we've got 2 games today, 2 games tomorrow and 2 games Sunday. So the first game we see here, we've got the New Zealand Warriors up against the Penrith Panthers over in New Zealand. A real interesting sort of lineup across the whole weekend. It's a little bit difficult to speculate on each and every one of these games simply due to the unknown nature of who's going to back up and who's not going to back up from Queensland and New South Wales. So these 2 teams here, relatively unaffected by state of origin. So I think this makes for an interesting clash, especially because both these teams are tied. They're those 3 wins outside of the 8 now. So whoever wins this game can really start to launch some momentum moving into the back end of the year. Penrith, they're 50-50 sort of record. I think just below 50% in New Zealand. But they've won 7 of the last 9 and won their match earlier this season back in Penrith 36-28. If we have a look at the lineups here, the New Zealand Warriors still pose a pretty formidable pack, and they'll be farewelling club legend Manu Vatuvei, who will be off to the Super League effective immediately. So outside of that, they welcome back Solomon Akata, so he'll line up in the centres. Unfortunately, just due to that reshuffle, you got Fusatua and Mamalo will be on the wing, so that leaves Chance Nickel-Klokstad outside of the 17, and I think he's been really, really good for him. So, you've got some outside back talent when you're leaving some kids with finishing ability like him out of your side. Again, we say it every week, that spine, RTS, Foran, Johnson, and Luke, they should be doing in most teams. They shouldn't be 3 wins out of the 8. So continuing to underperform now without Ryan Hoffman until the late rounds of the season is obviously a massive loss for them as well, particularly defensively. Buddy Afoa, he's not the most experienced back rower, and Bodine Thompson's been super hot and cold. And coming towards the back end of his career, Ben Madalino, he's sort of come in and out of form, I think, since returning for the Warriors. So, if him and Lilliman can spark alongside Simon Mannering, they're the 3 that really need to stand up and make sure that they win that forward rucks early on. There's still some big boys coming off the bench in Lasone, Gabbett, and Lingy South, so it'll be interesting to see how they use Hingano as well. But moving down into the Penrith lineup, you see up the top there the ins. So James Fisher-Harris will make his NRL return. He played reserve grade last week in the Penrith Panthers reserve grade thrashing of the Blacktown Workers. I think it ended up about 50-0. I think picked up a cheeky meat pie, so got through that game unscathed. Moylan has been named at 6, but there's word getting around that he's battling a bit of a hamstring niggle at the moment, so that's why you see down here in the reserves, Tyrone May is set to make his debut if he's no good to start. So I think a lot of which way I sort of lean in this match hinges on what happens there. If you've got May and Cleary in the halves, I think the experience of Foran and Johnson will get the job done, just simply because of the fact that experience of having young halves. They won't be able to finish and build pressure quite as effectively as Foran and Johnson will do. And I think they'll really stick to basic gameplay early on, if that is the case, and just make May do a shit ton of defence. So yeah, you've still got no fire, so Peachy remains in the centres for the time being. Dylan Edwards still at fullback now that they've made that change with Moylan. Otherwise, no other sort of changes aside from Fisher-Harris coming in. So look for him to make a big impact, and I'm glad that young Katoa is continuing to get his opportunities. It'll be interesting to see what happens once Peter Wallace becomes available in those later rounds of the season, and whether they look to keep Mitch Rain on the bench and sublimate those 2 guys. So it poses for an interesting clash. I think the youth of this Penrith forward pack, is particularly on the edges, but then balance with that experience of, you know, a Tamo and a Merrin. I think it poses for an interesting first 15 to 20 minutes when these teams decide to sort each other out, and when you've got finishers like Mansour and Zalesniak up against Mamalo and Fusatua, it could really go either way. But I think there's good value for Penrith. I think they're like $2.40 outsiders if we scroll up to the top. $2.40 for outsiders head to head. So I think that's still really good value for Penrith, and I'm actually going to get on the bandwagon now at this point in time, assuming that Matt Moylan is going to play. If he does get ruled out, I think just the experience and cool-headedness of a Kieran Foran will be enough to get them done and over the line. So yeah, the result hinging there, I'd leave it until the last minute. See what's happening with Matt Moylan and make a decision tipping wise from there. But otherwise, yeah, I still think Penrith can pull off an upset. They pulled off one last week against Manly, and I think Manly have showed that they're a lot more consistent side than what the New Zealand Warriors are, and simply because the New Zealand Warriors continue to do this throughout the season. I mean, I know Penrith have been in a similar boat, and that's exactly why they share the same spot on the ladder, but I'm going to lean a little bit more towards the Penrith Panthers at this stage. The second game tonight, we've got the Raiders up against the Dragons. Obviously, a lot of those tables have turned in recent times. We all remember the curse, the Raiders curse that was held in the clash of these two sides, with the Dragons being unsuccessful with 15 of the last 16 games. But in more recent times, the Dragons have actually won the last 4. So it's been a big shift in momentum over the last season and a half. But one thing that calms me with this Raiders outfit is just the fact that it's consistently the same side. And now you've got Hodgson coming back in to skipper the side at 9. I think he's going to add that dimension that they've been lacking the last couple of weeks, and you know, seeing brain explosions like that from Leilua a couple of weeks ago was just unacceptable. It can't happen, can't continue to happen. But you know, you've pretty much seen this side run out 1-13 bar Hodgson, you know, forever and a day. So why they're lacking in results that's why I'm concerned. But at the same time, you look at the changes that you see in the Dragons lineup. There's still so much conjecture left and right. See, Ewan Aitken's out yet again, and Tyson Frizzell won't back up from Origin. There's still 50-50s around Josh Dugan. He is expected to play, so again, you know, you just don't know what's going to happen with this back line. How the reshuffle poses, where they try and fit Kurt Mann in. Does Josh McCrone fit into that? They've named Matt Duffy in the 17. You know, there's so much, you know, and even we scroll down to the reserves. Paul Vaughan is in the mix to return early from a calf injury as well. So there's so much that could happen either which way for the Dragons, that I think it's probably more harm than good, even if you are getting the likes of a Dugan and a Paul Vaughan coming back into your team. I think it's just, yeah, there's so much shit going on, and there's been no consistency in their lineup pretty much since all that win streak from the start of the year ended. It's been a bit of a tough time for the Dragons of late, and travelling down there in the middle of winter now is going to be cold as fuck down in Canberra. I just like the Raiders simply because they've got no excuses now. They need to go out there and get this win. They've had no one that's going to affect them apart from Papali that played on Wednesday. In front of a home crowd, they need to start delivering for those fans and continue to make that a fortress there. But yeah, areas that I know that the Raiders need to improve in is the involvement of these two here, the 6 and the 7, Austin and Caesar. Their game management has been really, really poor over the last 6 weeks at least, and they need to step up to the plate, give more direction so that it's not up to your outside backs to just try and spark something out of nothing. And same goes, like when the forwards are winning the ruck, you need to be creating the appropriate opportunities for your outside backs. And I feel that their fifth tackle options and, you know, Austin's, I guess, attraction to playing that overs line too often when he gets running, a bit like Reynolds can do at times. So yeah, if he can just square that play up a little bit, dig his nose in, take on the line when he needs to. But I don't think Caesar's been doing that at all. He's been playing too far before the line. So if we can change a few of those things up in the Raiders camp, I think they can, on some tired legs, if these guys do come back out, can rattle up a bit of a score. But I don't think it will go that way. I think it'll be a bit closer. I think Dugan will play. I think Paul Vaughan will play. But yeah, it'll just be interesting to see what happens with the likes of Kurt Mann, McCrone, Dufty, which one of those guys misses out. I think that Kurt Mann has been probably the Dragons' most consistent player, considering the amount of different positions that he's played across the season. He's been outstanding. So yeah, for me, it's the Raiders 1-12 at home. Saturday, we've got Newcastle up against the Broncos. It's been pretty well one-way traffic for a number of years now. They've never had much success against Brisbane. The last 5 games, would you believe it, the Broncos have averaged 41 points against Newcastle and have won 32 of 36 games since the NRL was brought together in 1998. For me, I don't really see it going too differently. Gagai's expected to play. I think just the disappointment of the last few weeks, losing to the Bulldogs in the fashion last week and then losing to the Tigers the week before, it's a real big kick in the guts, and I'll be real interested to see how Brock Lamb bounces back and how they handled his sort of, headspace during the week. It's a lot to take in for a young guy, and to have that responsibility, and to have let in that try off that charge down from Mbai, and then miss the opportunity to take the game to extra time. I think it will eat away at him a little bit. And the longer the season goes, having a young captain in Sione Matautia, I think that weight only gets heavier and heavier as well. You've got an experienced half in Hodkinson that's doing the bare minimum at the moment, I believe. They're just pushing shit uphill at the moment. I really do feel sorry for them. That they've just got to keep digging in and doing what they have been doing. I think they've been far from terrible. They just don't have that winning culture just yet. And if they can jag a few more signings, as I'm hoping that they will continue to build on, I believe they're about to announce Tautai Moga to go down there, and so it'll be interesting to see how he goes against the club that he'll run out for next season. But yeah, there's a debutant for Brisbane Broncos and Jermaine Asako on the wing, so still no Corey Oates, and with the reshuffle with Boyd, Pearson keeps his spot on the wing, and Kahu at fullback. So yeah, Asako, look, he's as far as I'm aware, he's the fullback for the under-20s. I've seen a few highlights from him this year. He's got quite a stride on him and a good change of pace and a good bit of footwork. So it'll be interesting to see what happens if he gets his opportunities out in space. And we see a couple of ins there. Milford's been named in the reserves, so he'll be given every opportunity to play. And you'd have to think that, I guess you don't know what to fucking think with what Wayne Bennett's going to do with this halves lineup. The fact that Ben Hunt played State of Origin would suggest to me that he's of a standard across the competition that's worthy for him to be in an NRL starting side. So you'd think that it would be Milford and Hunt, but last time Milford did play, it was Milford and Marshall. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens there. I believe every single Queensland representative will back up, and yeah, I think they'll do it pretty easily, to be honest. I'd probably keep Nikorima. I don't think there's any point in dropping him and putting either Marshall or Hunt on the bench like they did in Canberra. I'd keep Nikorima in. I think he just provides a lot of spark in and around that ruck. That will offer a lot against the side that has the defensive qualities of Newcastle. I think he's more of an asset there rather than Hunt or Marshall off the bench if Milford is to play. But otherwise, I expect Corbin Sims to really roll the socks up and dig in against his old club. I think he'll go on, and I'd actually have a look at the try scoring market. I haven't had a chance to look at it, but yeah, I wouldn't mind him getting over the line against his former club. So yeah, for me, it's one-way traffic. I think the Brisbane Broncos will do it in quite stylish fashion, 13 plus. Second game of Saturday night, you've got the Gold Coast Titans up against Cronulla Sharks. So we've seen these two come together in what was an upset victory for the Titans. They ended up scoring 2 late tries to snatch the victory, 16-12. They've always had since the Titans have been formed anyway, a really close rivalry at the Gold Coast at Cbus Super Stadium. They're actually all tied up, so 2 wins each and a draw. And head to head, the Titans are $2.40 outsiders, much like Penrith are. So I think that's still good value, simply because of the insecurity around the starting side for Cronulla. So we see there, Haynes going to play at fullback. You've got the great finisher in Anthony Don. Zillman, the experience of Zillman. Copley's been doing a good job in the centres, and Harrell's still super damaging. Back to the halves combination of Roberts and Taylor, while LG still remains out of the side. I think Wallace, scoring his first ever Origin try, getting that series win under his belt, will really look to team up with his partner in crime in James Roberts. And look for Nathan Peets to really bounce back as well. Didn't have one hit up in Game 3. And he's renowned for getting out and creating that ruck speed. So I think he'll be able to prove a bit of a point and just double down on his chances of getting that number 9 jersey again next year for New South Wales. So he'll want to have a big end of the season. But yeah, you just can't write this Titans team off. You have a look at that bench there, pretty inexperienced. Polatoni only played a couple games NRL. Boyle, Parsy's been damaging, but we haven't seen the consistency of his presence in the side as we did last year, as well as Nathan Pettigrew. So you go down into the Cronulla lineup. I'm hearing that Val Holmes is all gravy, but there's potential for Maloney, Bird, and also Graham to be rested. Fafita's is still waiting on the birth of his child, so if that does occur, he won't play. Otherwise, he'll fly down game day, so he hasn't actually made the trip up to the Gold Coast as of yet. So yeah, if for whatever reason that Maloney's rested, I'd say Brown will just go on the halves, and Seguiaro is named in the reserve, so he's set to make his return. I think he'll find his way into that 17 regardless. So a lot of this I think hinges on the selection or absence of their State of Origin players. I think just with that bench of the Titans, I don't think it's quite as destructive as what the Sharks bring. But again, they proved that they were good enough last start when they did go on that win streak and get the scalps of the Sharks and the Storm, the only team to have done so far this year. But yeah, again, I guess a lot to do with that first game in the Warriors in Penrith, hinging around key positions. So again, I'd probably leave this one right up to the last minute, see who's in those lineups, if they are missing a number of New South Wales players, perhaps a bit of leniency towards the Titans is in favour as far as head-to-head tipping goes. Mind you, they have done a reasonable job with Brown and Townsend in the halves during the Origin period. But yeah, for me, if Seguiaro is still in that lineup, I think that'll be good enough. So yeah, at this stage, I'm leaning towards the Sharks, but I think it'll still be close again. I think it'll be a real sort of dirty game. So yeah, looking at a 1-12 victory for Cronulla. But again, yeah, just be wary of those selections late. Sea Eagles and Tigers. I sort of put this in similar realm to the Knights and Broncos. I know they had that hiccup last week against Penrith. But yeah, the Tigers, they're just really struggling. They're not really offering much in the way of excitement. I know they did jag that win against Newcastle, but it's Newcastle. You're playing someone of the equal quality that you've presented so far this season, and yeah, it didn't impress me in any way, shape or form. And what excites me is that right edge of Walker and Uarte. I think if they can isolate those guys, so they being Blake Green and Cherry Evans, if they can do that, and continue to hold some defenders up with the use of Travojevic showing up in that back line, I think I can cause some real grief against the inexperience of the Tigers. If we sort of have a look down here, Hassan Masters and Moses Suley on each edge respectively, both young dudes. Even Nguama's still only young. I know he's played a fair bit of NRL now for a young fella, but I think as far as potency goes, they can really cause some headaches. The experience of Walker and Uarte. It'll be interesting to see how Aaron Woods bounces back. Obviously, a bit of a subpar performance on Wednesday night, so he'll be keen to dig into the line and prove what he's about. And James Tedesco is never going to give up, even though he will be departing the club at the end of the year. He's going to be given 110% and looking for ways. When the more the footy's in his hands, the better chances the Tigers are of jagging a victory. But yeah, again, just looking at the forward packs, I think Api Korosal's having a fantastic season for him. So if he can help tighten that ruck up, steer those forwards around, Marty Tapau, if they can get Sean Lane as they were doing last week against Penrith, getting down that right edge. Like I said, him, Sean Lane, Dylan Walker, Uarte, I think that could be the answer to a lot of their troubles, and I think they'll find success more times than they'll find failure against a struggling West Tigers defensive lineup. So yeah, pretty basic, straight down the line. They've won 7 of the last 8 at Brookvale, or Lotterland, whatever the fuck you want to call it. The Tigers haven't won there since their first encounter back in 2003. So yeah, a very, very long time between drinks. And yeah, I think the Manly side will do it in 13 plus. Final game for the weekend. We've got the Rabbitohs up against the Cowboys. This game, even though it's a Rabbitohs home game, as they have done for the last few years, taking that home game up to Barlow Park in Cairns. So it'll be in North Queensland. Running through those lineups, we've got no Braden Burns this week, so you'll have Johnson and Gray will be your wingers, with Jennings coming into that other centre. Aaron Gray just signing that 2-year deal with Cronulla, so he'll be keen to put together a very constructive back end of the year for South to push for his chances. Obviously going to a super, super competitive club. Even now in the rumour mill that Jack Bird could backflip on that Broncos deal, but who knows what sort of weight you can sort of hold to the shit that you read in the media these days. So you just got to take that with a grain of salt, but a great signing nonetheless for the Sharks. I think he's got a heap of potential. We've seen a couple of years ago he scored those 4 tries in the City Country match out of nowhere. But yeah, I think again, they were disappointing last week against the Roosters. Definitely had the firepower to go out there and get the job done. And looking at the stats of both these teams, they're pretty much neck and neck. You can't really split them, except for the fact that the Cowboys have won 4 more games, so they've got 8 more competition points. So what the Cowboys have done is just win the games that you should win. So it sounds super basic and almost condescending, but yeah, if you get in those arm wrestles and you win the majority of those arm wrestles, you're going to be way further up in that top 8. You look at, I think there was I seen something a few weeks back where any teams that had won or lost by 6 points or less, if that was inverted, what the ladder would look like. And I think it was the Raiders that would actually be on top of the ladder. That's how many close games they've lost. So I think the Rabbitohs fall into something pretty similar. It's not like they go out there every week and get absolutely flogged. That's only happened to them a couple of times. They just need to find some momentum and keep getting back to what was working for them. I think they really went away from trying to get some time for Alex Johnston with the kicking game of Reynolds last week. And I know there was a bit of a mismatch there with the wingers that, the big tall wingers that the Roosters possess. But regardless, I think you've got to at least experiment when things aren't going your way. I still really love the young edge back rolls that they've got in Fuimaono and Crichton, and the more ball that they can get them into space with, as well as Burgess showing up either side of the ruck. I think they'll get some success there. But yeah, outside of that, the ways that North Queensland are going to find themselves struggling to certain extents is just the time factor that Tamari Martin and Michael Morgan have had together, with Morgan going into another Origin camp. But it seemed relatively ineffective in their first hit out together, with both of them scoring a double each. But yeah, I expect everyone to to come back from Origin camp, all for the better. Especially Morgan, playing out of position yet again and delivering results. That fantastic offload back on the inside for Valentine Holmes in the first try of game 3. Gavin Cooper was instrumental again. And Cohen Hess is only going to continue and grow in confidence. I really like the role that he's, possessing for the Cowboys at the moment, coming off the bench. Fenton was massive against their last hit out against Canberra. So I'll look to him to really bolster up that middle, to come on for that second wave of attack once Asiata or Bolton come off. I just like the essence of Queensland being able to play in North Queensland, coming out of the back of something like a tough Origin campaign. I think now that the reality of a Thurstonless outfitters has truly sunk in, and they've played without Matty Scott for so long, dug even deeper into the playing ranks with Kafusi out for the season with his foot as well. So again, it really comes down to this spine. Tamari Martin, just continue to be patient. Don't try and overplay his hand. As long as Coote and Granville can keep control of that ruck and that ruck speed working together, which just takes that little bit of pressure off Morgan to continue the great kicking game that he started to develop towards this back end of the year. I think the Cowboys will be more than competent in getting a victory up there. I think they just need to continue with the formula that they've been delving into, and that's, don't go out there with the expectation that you need to go and score 30, 40 points every week to obliterate sides. It's like, let's go out there, stick to our structures, and win games how we know we can win, and that's just by scoring more points than them. So I don't expect this to be a blowout. I expect the Rabbitohs to make a bit of a fist of it, but I think the Cowboys, if they can just hold consistency, weather the storm of the Burgess brothers, as most outfits that have beaten the Rabbitohs this year tend to do, I think they'll get the cookies. So that's the wrap up of everything round 19 as far as lead-ins go. I think the Cowboys will do that 1 to 12. Although there is good value there, if you're looking either way. South's 1 to 12's $3.75, and as I was saying, there's a few good value teams. Definitely no certainties this week, especially around this Origin period. So collated a few of the roughies. So Penrith are the outsiders, Dragons are the outsiders, Titans the outsiders, Rabbits the outsiders. 38 to 1 odds. So a cheeky little 4-leg multi paying $38. You can't really go wrong there. Cheeky tenner on that, and you're in for a good weekend the following weekend. So if you want to have, I guess the biggest outsider on that, I think, is the Dragons. They could potentially really struggle down there in Canberra. So but regardless, that's sort of my rough tip for the week if you want to have a bit of a splurge. Otherwise, thanks very much for the week, gang. I really appreciate anyone who's listening to me right now, and any way that you can support the podcast, obviously, like, share on Facebook, subscribe on YouTube, and that way you're able to know when I'm posting the videos straight away. You'll always get it first, because that's where I post the content first. Outside of that, chuck me in your car. That's why I post the audio. It's on SoundCloud. It's on your iTunes app now as well. So thanks very much, and I will see you at the start of next week, where we'll review all these games and see how right or wrong I was. Rightio. Enjoy your footy.